Inside the store, a blonde woman watched him with a suspicious expression. Sitting in front of the counter, the young man just pondered how he would sell the gold. After a while, the saleswoman approached and asked if she could help him since he had been there for over an hour. With a smile, he explained that he had a gold art piece to sell and asked if they accepted it. The woman confirmed they bought gold, but only with a receipt, as they didn't accept items from unknown sources. Awkwardly, he just said he would look somewhere else first and said goodbye. Already outside, Song Chao told himself he needed to sell that gold no matter what. Soon after, he was seen running from a shop while being accused of stealing the item. An hour later, the young man was kicked out of another place but remained determined to find a buyer someday. Later, he refused to sell it for 100 at a pawn shop, demanding at least 300 for the gold. By night, he sat on a bench completely discouraged from failing to sell the item anywhere. With that, he realized he had never imagined how hard it would be to sell the gold he had in his hands. Suddenly, a man stopped in front of him and asked how many pieces he was selling. Surprised by the approach, the young man just looked up, unsure what to say. Before him stood an old man with a hat who watched him, waiting for an answer. At that moment, the man smiled and invited him to go to his shop with the goods. As they walked down a dark, empty street under the moonlight, the two moved side by side. Soon after, the man invited him into his antique shop. With a gesture, the old gentleman welcomed him to his no-questions-asked antique store. Sitting in his chair, he introduced himself as the manager, Zhou Fuyuan. From there, he asked the young man to show him the pieces he was selling. A bit awkward, Song Chao simply agreed to the request. Right after, he revealed the large golden sailing ship that shone brilliantly. At that moment, he explained it was a work of art in perfect condition, sold at the price of ordinary gold, which left the manager impressed. With a magnifying glass, the elder examined the piece up close and remarked that it was incredible. After the inspection, Zhao Fuyuan confirmed it was genuine gold with excellent craftsmanship and prepared to make an offer. He then assured him he was a fair businessman and followed the general price of gold and art, while the young man listened closely. After weighing the piece, the manager offered the market value as a friendly deal between them. As a notification popped up on the young man's phone, the merchant advised him to bring any other treasure there first. Seeing the amount of 740,000 yen on the screen, the young man realized he was finally rich. With the phone in hand, Song Chao celebrated at last getting the money. As soon as he arrived, Song Chao knocked on Aunt Zhang's door to settle the account. Suspicious, the woman peered through the crack and asked who it was before opening the door. For a moment, her gaze stayed fixed. With his phone in hand, the young man announced he was there to pay the debt via transfer. Even without understanding, Aunt Zhang told him to come in and said to settle the payment directly with her son. Then the woman called for Zhang Jun to come receive the money. Soon the young man appeared, asking if, after all that time, the debt would finally be paid. The visitor then confirmed he would make the transfer on his phone. With that, he opened the payment app so the transaction could be completed. While looking at the phone, Zhang Jun insulted him, calling him a lazy hick and saying his family was useless. The young man's expression changed completely upon hearing the insult. He immediately stated that the 10,000 debt was paid with 2,000 in interest, because a man should be grateful and have manners. He then warned that he would make Zhang Jun regret it if he said one more word about his family. The threat left mother and son completely terrified. The boy pointed and shouted about the threat, but the others simply asked whether it really was one. With an intimidating look, he asked if Zhang Jun truly wanted to test him. His opponent's reaction was pure shock before Song Chao finally left at dusk. Later that night, the debt was finally paid. Lying in his bed, the young man began planning to buy a new bed for his parents and maybe even a house. Soon his thoughts turned to what might have happened to the sisters in the other world. Looking at the ring on his finger, he decided it might be better to check on them later. The next day, Song Chao returned to the warehouse in the other world. With his backpack on his shoulders, he walked through the place. Right after, he opened the door with a smile and announced that he was back. At that very moment, a gun was pressed against his head. It was Shen Zhouan asking if it was really him, while Shen Jiamei watched just behind her. With his hands up, the young man asked her not to shoot and confirmed his identity. The veteran lowered her weapon and wanted to know what he was doing there again. The young man tried to find out whether the group from the day before had returned, but she cut him off, saying it was none of his business. Faced with that, the woman asked why he'd come back after running away, and he explained he had promised to find his sister. Intrigued, Shen Zhouan suggested he bring that sister to the shelter. A bit embarrassed, Song Chao made up that she was a little unwell at the moment. Suspicious, the woman stepped closer to ask whether his sister was a mutant. He quickly confirmed and added that she was very aggressive and trusted no one. The explanation didn't seem to convince the two sisters, who just watched him in silence. To change the subject, the visitor opened his backpack and offered bacon and sausages he had brought. After everyone ate, the table was covered with empty plates and bowls. With a satisfied sigh, Shen Jiamei showed how much she had enjoyed the meal. She soon commented that she was full and content, as she hadn't eaten that well in a long time. Next, the younger one suggested that her older sister marry Song Chao, so they would never have to worry about their last meal again. At the boldness, Shen Zhuan gave her a thump on the head for the suggestion. She then scolded the girl and told her not to try to sell her to anyone. Watching the scene, the young man seemed to remember something important. Then the woman explained they would need to go to Linjing base the next day to pick up supplies and invited him to come along. His answer was an immediate and enthusiastic yes. Turning to the leader, he confirmed he would definitely go with them on the mission. The young man then listed that he also had many things to buy, such as genetic enhancement, fluid, and combat suits. Hearing his plan to get 10 of each, Shen Zhuan asked if he would be able to carry that much weight. Right away, she warned that Linjing's genetic enhancer was low grade, and that taking it more than once wouldn't help. Song Chao explained he was buying for some friends and asked what time they would depart. After thinking, the warrior said they would leave at 10 o'clock, but that he would need to bring more food to have enough money. With a thumbs up, the young man assured them not to worry, since he would bring more than enough food. The next morning, the group prepared to head out through the abandoned city. With a thud, Song Chao dropped 2 heavy suitcases onto the warehouse floor. Standing beside his surprised Shen Zhuan, he declared that it was enough for the trip. As soon as they opened the cases, the sisters were astonished to see fruits, vegetables, eggs, and even meat. The young man then explained that he would leave 2 suitcases as payment and use the rest for shopping, earning their agreement. With a big smile, he said he was really excited for this. At that moment, Shen Jiamai poked her sister again, suggesting she just marry him already. Embarrassed, the older sister told the girl to stop talking and get in the vehicle so they could leave. Right after, the yellow vehicle took off at high speed and departed on the mission. While traveling, the young man seemed a bit confused by the landscape. His surprise grew when they spotted gigantic walls on the horizon. He then asked the younger one if that was a military base behind the walls. With shining eyes, the girl simply confirmed it was. Then Shen Jiamai explained that it was Linjing military base, a human fortress with 3 walls and defenses no mutant dared to cross. Upon arriving at the base entrance, the group joined others who were also waiting to enter. Meanwhile, one of the armed guards instructed everyone in line to stay orderly and present their cards. Soon the entry gate opened so they could move forward. While waiting, Song Chao asked how much food was needed to get digital currency, and Shen Zhuan explained the exchange rate. Then the woman brought her arm to the sensor to validate entry. At that moment, one of the guards teased her, asking if the West Side twins were raising men now. With a look of disdain, she told him to shut up and just do his job. The soldier only responded with a mocking chuckle. With their entry cleared, the main gate opened along with a welcome greeting to Linjing base. The young man was completely amazed by the sight before him. The inner city revealed itself as a futuristic place full of neon lights and advanced technology. The streets of that fortress in the post-apocalyptic world were bustling with life. All around, people in different outfits and appearances wandered about. Seeing the movement, the young man asked if it was safe now that their weapons had been handed over, but Shen Zhuan reassured him. However, his expression changed when he noticed a less glamorous side of the city. In a dark corner, he saw 2 thin, sickly-looking men sitting on the ground. One of them looked his way with a face completely devoid of hope. Watching the scene, Song Chao realized the harsh reality of that ruined world. Suddenly, a man began shouting in the middle of the street, drawing everyone's attention. He loudly announced that he had a beautiful woman freshly brought from the south. With a tired look, the woman just listened in silence as the offer was made for 10 electronic coins. Hearing the price, Song Chao was shocked to realize that was worth only 5 eggs. At that moment, Shen Zhuan's voice came from his side, asking if he was tempted by the offer. Then she advised him to mind his own business and stay out of it. Quickly, the young man denied it, saying he couldn't waste food on that and they should hurry to make the exchange. With that, Shen Zhuan agreed and explained that people there would do anything for food. She also added they could even steal everything he had during the night. Soon after, the woman stopped walking and pointed out they had reached their destination. The group then headed to a building marked as the Currency Bureau. Before going in, she instructed Song Chao to remain silent and act indifferent. According to her advice, that behavior would prevent him from being looked down on inside. As soon as they entered, 2 uniformed men watched them approach the counter. One of them asked Shen Zhuan if she had anything good to sell. In response, the woman placed a large suitcase on the counter and said it was just that. The man looked surprised and wanted to know what was inside the case. With a slight smile, Shen Zhuan ordered him to exchange all its contents for digital currency. As soon as the suitcase was opened, the attendant asked in disbelief if she was really going to trade all that. But his partner repeated the question, shocked at the huge amount of eggs inside. Soon, the older man shouted as he noticed there were also fresh vegetables among the items. The sight of nearly 3 kilos of fresh meat left everyone at the place astonished. Even the others waiting in line reacted in shock at the news of food. With that, the attendant gripped the counter and demanded to know where on earth they had gotten it. Then his colleague whispered to be careful, as they might be royalty from a large base. Hearing that, the man agreed to make the trade immediately, while young Shen Zhuan urged him to hurry. She then warned him not to try anything funny, as she would be watching his every move. Soon after, Shen Jiami cheered excitedly at receiving 470 points for the trade. The girl then shouted they were going shopping, while her sister and Song Chao watched with a smile. At that moment, the young man said she could buy whatever she wanted on his tab, not noticing someone was spying on them from afar. Hidden in an alley, the man concluded they were a good target, and that he needed to inform Tiger. In a bar, the informant told his boss Tiger that a fat sheep was in town and had exchanged over 400 credits. While smoking, the gang leader commented that it was an impressive amount. The man then detailed that the trade included eggs, fruit, and 3 kilos of pork, which made Tiger skeptical. But the informant swore he was absolutely sure about the information. The gang boss then realized that was an extremely rare product in the region. With 2 women at his side, the criminal asked how many people made up the potential target. The answer was that there were only 3 people, 1 man and 2 women, who were still in Market 1. With the cigar between his fingers, the leader called over one of his men, Old Sticks. Then the order was for his men to watch the road leading to the Western District. Tiger then reflected that these days, anyone who could afford pork was very rich. The success of that plan meant he would get even richer. Meanwhile, Shen Zhuan asked if Song Chao was sure he wanted to go to the market. The young man replied that she wasn't the only one who had things to buy there. With that, the woman agreed and suggested they split up and meet again when finished shopping. The young man's first stop was a store displaying several models of weapons in its showcase. To Song Chio's surprise, Shen Jiamei decided at the last second to follow him into the weapons shop. Soon after, an automated interface projected a welcome message from the device on his wrist. The holographic projection of the interface left him speechless for a moment. Then the system welcomed him to the Linjiang base market while displaying the available purchase options. Upon entering, Song Chao was impressed by a giant combat robot on display in the shop. He quickly realized that this market was truly full of every kind of equipment. With that, he let out a nervous laugh. Soon after, the 2 sisters left him alone to do their own shopping, leaving him completely overwhelmed. Annoyed, he complained that they didn't even accompany their customer and that he would leave a bad review. While interacting with the holographic panel, the young man lamented that they could at least have told him where to go. The system then displayed the specifications of an automatic pistol and a hologram. His eyes widened as he had an idea, so he decided he needed to arm himself to survive and that he could no longer hide behind a woman. A little later, he left the store wearing a new protective suit. Holding the weapon he bought, he wondered if it would be enough to protect himself. A voice then commented on his new look, and he turned to look. With a smile, the young man simply welcomed them back. He quickly noticed that Shen Zhuan and Shen Jiamei were also wearing new combat suits. The older sister remarked that his choice of defensive gear wasn't bad. With another smile, Shen Zhuan pointed out that at least he understood what was at stake, but then warned they had spent all the money. Surprised, Song Chao asked how that was possible since he thought it was a lot of money. The woman explained that precisely because it was a lot, they bought a lot of things, while the younger one thanked him for the candy. Outraged, the young man asked who had authorized buying candy, but Shen Zhuan just told him not to worry about it. Right after, Tiger's group appeared and surrounded the 3 in the middle of the street. On the deserted road, Tiger's men positioned themselves for the ambush they had planned. Soon, the group's yellow vehicle came flying at high speed through the night sky. Using a tech visor, the scout locked his sights on the target to confirm its position. Then the man stood up and warned his companions that the target was there. One of the thugs turned to call the boss, who was waiting for the signal. Soon, Tiger appeared from behind, commenting that the prey had finally arrived. With a quick grin, the gang leader agreed everything was ready for the attack. He then shouted for his lazy men to get ready for action. Tiger's final order was not to kill the sheep, since